Hi YouTubers, there's quite a bit of interest in this project, so I will be doing a part 2, and this is part 2. I've now completed the adapter or battery modification compartment, whatever you like to call it. It's got a cigarette lighter plug, cigarette socket lighter plug on the end of the cable. I've not glued the case on yet, but this is the finished article. So you've got a regulator IC here, voltage regulator, a couple of diodes to change the bias on this regulator, a fuse which I've actually glued in because there's not enough room, and I thought I'm going to put a fuse in for safety's sake, because you know these things are 10 amp and there's no way this circuit's going to handle 10 amp. I've also put polarity diode in, so there's 3 diodes, 2 what I call bias diodes, a directional diode which stops the power only going one way into it, so you can't mix up the negative and positive this end. The capacitors are filtering capacitors, and you need 3 or 4 if you're going to have these like biasing diodes in, and I'll talk about that when I do the actual wiring diagram. I have tried it, it does work, and the output of it is 7 volts, and I think the batteries are rated at 7.4, yes, 7.4 there, just under 2 amps, and yeah, and seems to work very well. I'm quite pleased with that, and it looks quite a professional finish. And I'll just say I've got to just glue the case back on, and hopefully that'll be the last time it comes apart. And I've got to wait for some glue to go off. When I've attached the fuse, I've put some Yoo-hoo glue on it, and Yoo-hoo glue never really sets hard, and it's a bit like chewing gum. And the heatsink seems to work okay, and yeah, so in the next little part of this video or snippet will be the circuit diagram and how it works. Well, I'm back in the garage. It was too hot the other day, so I'm back in the garage now, and it's cooled off a bit, and so I thought I'd go over the circuit diagram that was used to make this adapter, so that the Baofeng can be run from 12 volt. I've still not glued the case together yet because I might need to refer to the circuit diagram. I'm going to start off with the basics. This was made from bits I've already got laying around, and I'll just show you the circuit diagram. And what there is a voltage regulator. Now the one I used is a 7806, which is 6 volt. But hang on a minute, you're going to say the battery's about 8 volts, so how does that work? Right, I'll just go over how it's wired. The input leg of the regulator has an electrolytic capacitor across it to ground. The centre leg of the regulator, which is normally goes straight to ground, has got 2 diodes in series, which are 1N4001, 4002 series diodes, a pair of those wired like that, another electrolytic capacitor, and a final electrolytic capacitor from the output of the regulator. And addition I made, I put a fuse in line and a 4 amp diode to stop reverse protection. In other words, if you get the battery connection on here, the 12 volt battery, it doesn't work. It's designed to be the right polarity, so that just goes into there. Now the capacitor values, I just grab whatever would fit in the case. You know, in physically in here, though we can see that in the case, there's a big one and two small ones, and it's whatever I could find that would be flat enough to get the lid on. But basically, I think the values are like a 10 microfarad, two 10 microfarads and a 1 microfarad. But they have to be 25 volt capacitors, and they are polarised, so they have to be put in the right way. And that's how simple the circuit is. And I'll put a photo of this next.
Oh, goody.
Right, now you've had a chance to look at the photo, you're saying, well, what do these diodes do here? Well, every time you put a diode in this configuration, it raises the 6 volt out, so you get 0.6 volt increase in the output. So you've got 6 plus 0.6, for example, and another 0.6. So this is raising the actual output voltage by roughly 1.2, or it could be just 1 volt if they're 0.5 drop. It just boosts the regulator up. But by boosting the regulator up with two diodes, it can cause interference. It can self-oscillate, so you need to put capacitor across it there, across the diodes. You could also put a non-electrolytic capacitor there, like a 0.1 if you wanted, microfarad. And so that's basically it, and I'll show you the parts list. And it's 3 electrolytic capacitors, 25 volt rating, 1 regulator 7806, 2 1N400 series diodes, 1 silicon diode 4 amp, and 1 2.5 amp fuse. Now I'm going to show you another way of fitting a different regulator. Alright, let's turn that over. So there's this way of doing it, and the other way of doing it is you could use, right, let's draw the regulator again, in here. Right, if that's ground, that's out, that's in briefly. If you use a 9 volt regulator, what you do is you don't put any diodes in the center leg, the ground one, you put the diodes on the output. Like that. So rather than have these two down here, you have a wire straight down from that, and that's where the 7809. Now, as I said earlier, you get roughly about 0.5, 0.6 volt drop. So, having it there, you've got a volt drop across here of 1 volt. So that'll give you 8 volts of a drop. If it's 0.6, it's obviously a greater drop. If you put another diode in, that'll give you another half a volt, so that will be 7.5 volts out, and that's using a 9 volt regulator. And you put it in diodes in series with the output. not showing you very well. I hope that makes sense. It probably doesn't to a lot of people. And that's basically the drawing I've used. I've used a 7806 regulator because I had one lying around. Most of these components are very cheap, and a piece of scrap circuit board, Vero board, a very small piece, and you can see the fuse there, you can see the diode there, that arrangement, you can see the two diodes in the middle, which are those two, and you can see the three capacitors, and that's it. And that's as simple as that. And it works. This gives 7 volts out, and it reads a couple of bars on the voltmeter scale on the radio, but that's fine. So now all I've got to do is to pop the lid back on and maybe make a new label to put on here saying what it is. I might stick a paper label on, and it's that easy. You know, I suppose the difficult bit is getting an empty battery case, but this battery was faulty anyway, so I just prized it open, and you'll also notice these electrical connections here I took off there. They just prize out. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like.